gentlemen. It is Monday morning, not Sunday evening. Sorry about that because of my travel schedule and major tournament over the weekend. So I was actually had the opportunity to be at the National Tennis Center for 3 days where the U.S. Open is played. And if you want to get a secondary lesson in sport economics, it's to be around a major venue when the event that it is constructed for is not actually occurring, but to see both the setup and the teardown, and to understand just how much goes into the presentation of a major event. The entire facility was just still humming with almost construction-like activity in reverse. And when you actually see that going on around you, you kind of realize how much money is being spent and how much money is coming in to understand that this is a profitable event, very profitable event. And to look at the facility itself and to understand that here is a facility that is massive in scale for the sport that it serves, and it's used for 2 weeks a year. And generally speaking, it sits pretty much dormant for the other 50, with the exception of the work to prepare it and to tear it down from those 2 weeks. And that's kind of an interesting view on sport economics. So it wasn't all just coaching for post. It was actually looking around and kind of seeing what's going on in the business of sports. Okay. All right. This week we're going to move into something I think that's sometimes a little bit more fun. This is the week where it is actually a little bit easier for us to, as I often ask students to do, is to take off the hat we wear as sports fans and try to look at things a little bit more critically, as from an economic point of view, from a business point of view. This is the week where we can let the fandom creep in and help us in that view. And we are looking at the idea this week of competitive balance. You know, last week and the last 2 weeks, we've sort of examined how do teams make their money? Where does it come from? How do we look at labor markets? How do we look at all those things that, yes, go into the business of sport, but they're maybe not quite as much fun? This week, we actually look at leagues, really, even though we don't really approach it directly that way. And this whole idea of competitive balance is really important. Is competitive balance, particularly in professional sport, important and necessary for the sport to succeed? For instance, yeah, the Red Sox are pulling away from them and running away, but when the Yankees win, is it good for sports? Is it good for baseball? Right? When the Red Sox win, is it good for baseball? Or when the Red Sox and the Yankees win together, is that great for baseball in the business sense? When you have a team like the New England Patriots, who can kind of dominate, love them or hate them, they're there. Is that good for football? Are the bottom feeders bad for the sport? Those teams? Are the Cleveland Browns a detriment to football? It's kind of interesting. Yet we know that the NFL has a mechanism where they try to balance the competitive factor, right? We have the draft, and that's supposed to bring around long-term balance. You know, it's often been kicked around in sports circles that the NFL, the league, would be happy if everybody was 8-8. Well, I don't know if the league would be happy if everybody was 8-8, but do they really always want one team to be 12-4 and one team to be 3-13? It's a very interesting question. So we look this week at some different ways that leagues try to behave and to balance their teams, balance the competition level. And in America, really what we do in American professional sports, we tend to rely on the method of two prime methods, draft and salary cap, right? Look at the other great world sport of soccer, football, and they do it quite differently. They have this system of promotion and relegation, and if you're not familiar with it, it's really interesting, where there's a hierarchy of leagues. We almost might call it major league to minor league, and if you're not winning if you're finishing last in that league, you get a chance of getting kicked out. Well, what does that mean? What does that mean? You get kicked down to the league below, and the people who are champions in the league below get a chance to move up. Well, that's nice for the fans and everything like that, but is it great for the teams? Well, let's just look at England. The Premiership, which is the top division in soccer in England, and then you move down to what's called the League Championship, which is the second division. The difference in financial benefit is vast. Okay? And the same goes for the third division, which is League One, and the fourth division, which is League Two. And teams move up and down between these divisions. And to move up is a great thing for your team. To move down is a financial disaster. So these things come into play. Plus, it does keep the fans involved at the bottom. In the end of the season, you will see just as much fan interest at people trying to wonder if their team is going to stay up in that upper division versus drop down, as you will at the top of the division, where people are struggling along against each other for a championship. It's very interesting. How do we maintain fan interest? How do we maintain TV interest? How do we maintain sponsor interest? So it's all a very different way of looking at things. But the whole question is, how do we maintain competitive balance? And is it really good for the sports that we love to watch? Okay, and that's the way we generate our revenue, generate our businesses, and it's really important. So that's the main thrust of this week. It's builds, as you can see, on earlier weeks, because those were providing components we needed to develop the balance or the chance for our teams to succeed. And that's where everything starts to pull together a little bit. And actually, this is starting to fold into next week. Now, you'll notice this week we're still doing a discussion. I don't do a midterm exam, obviously. And what we're not going to do this year definitely is any kind of test. I almost never do tests. I don't believe in them. Really, I don't believe in them. We're going to do a little exercise next week that has been proven interesting over the years. Until somebody tells me it's not interesting, we're going to do it, even though it's a little out of season. It's a little bit, if we were doing this in the spring, it would be a live event the most. So next week, I do it in week 5, not week 4. So if you're wondering where's the midterm, what's going on, that's where it is, and you'll get some more detailed instructions on it next week. Okay, so that's it for this morning, and I appreciate again everybody's participation and the way things are going. It's kind of hard sometimes with only a few of us. It seems to be that it would be easier, but sometimes it's a little bit easier to get things going with a few more people. So I really appreciate the effort and the attention that you guys are paying, and it's something that I think will make it work and make it worthwhile for everyone. Okay, thank you very much, and we'll talk later in the week.